Time for a Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Edible Insects, A Global History by Gina Louise Hunter, published in 2001 or 2021 by Reaction Books. It's 176 pages. Aside from honey, which of course is made by bees, in the United States and Europe, the idea of eating insects as food tends to be repulsive to most people. So there's a lot of resistance to it. But of course, humans have been eating insects from our very beginning. Our primate cousins still eat insects regularly. It's a major part of their diet. And in ancient times, insect eating was a common thing. And there are still plenty of cultures around the world where insects are not only a delicacy, but they're a vital part of the diet. One of the great advantages of eating insects as food is that they are a cheap source of protein, especially in places where protein is hard to come by or very expensive. Another big advantage of edible insects is not only are they have a lot of protein, they're much lower in fat than most other protein sources like beef or poultry or pork. For example, average insects have only about half as much fat as beef does. So it's a healthy alternative to the eating of meat and a good source of protein. This book goes through the whole history of edible insects. According to this book, there's about 2,000 insects that humans regularly consume as food, mostly beetles, caterpillars, and ants, and prepared in various ways. And the book goes through the eating of insects in ancient times, ancient Greece, ancient Africa, and so forth. But also there's a chapter on modern cuisine, insect cuisine in countries such as China, Mexico, Japan, Thailand, Zimbabwe, and even the United States. There's also a chapter on the periodic locust plagues. And there's an interesting little photograph here of a locust plague. This was in Madagascar in 2014. You can see this vast, if you can see that vast amount of locusts there. Locust plagues we tend to associate with the 19th century in the United States, but there have been locust plagues periodically throughout the world every few years. And what tends to happen is, of course, the locusts wipe out the local crops, and it's been quite common for people to turn to eating locusts in order to avoid starvation, because the locusts themselves are actually a good source of food when they've wiped out other sources. There's also a chapter in here on the cultivation of insects, which is a fairly recent phenomenon in the United States and Europe, but which has been quite common in many countries for many years. Of course, the Chinese have been cultivating silkworms for thousands of years, not to eat, but of course to produce silk with. But the production of insects for food, the deliberate cultivation, is becoming more and more common, even here in the United States. Here, for example, is a picture of something called Cricket Pasta. This is a company that sells this in the United States. They farm crickets. They raise crickets in a big factory building, and then they grind them up into flour and make pasta out of them. There's other companies that do something similar with protein bars and so forth. So the idea is catching on, at least in some areas. One of the things the book talks about at the end is the danger of this. If eating insects becomes too popular, we may do the same problem that we have with fish and other animals, is that we wipe out or endanger the population by over-harvesting them. The book concludes with some interesting recipes. I'll just read a few of them for you. All these reaction books, this, by the way, is a part of a reaction book series called the Edible Series, which is about various foods and the history of various foods. There's some, and they always end with interesting recipes. Here's one for deep fried tarantulas. There's another one in here for mealworm chocolate chip cookies. And bee granola. And then, let's see, what others? Water bug soup and some others. And at the end, there's a list of other books you can read, websites that deal with edible insects, and so forth. The book is highly illustrated. There's a number of photographs here of various insects as food. Um, these are some insects that are eaten in Japan, for example. So if you are interested in the topic and you're not put off by the idea, or you have a willingness to try different foods, if your palate, you want to expand your palate, it's a very interesting book and very comprehensive. If you've ever been curious about edible insects, this short little book, even though it's only less than 200 pages, really covers the topic very well. The book is Edible Insects. The author is Gina Louise Hunter. This has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.